I'm also an assistant faculty lead for physical sciences with Ivy Online, which is our online educational unit.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zhou. I'm a senior research scientist at Eli Lilly and Company. Today, we have 4 fantastic panelists with us to help dig into the idea that you don't need permission to be the change. We will allow the panelists to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about their background. Maybe we can start with Angela.
Apologies, someone was just writing to me asking me how to get into this session. So, so I'm Angela Wilson. I'm president-elect of the American Chemical Society. I am also John A. Hanna Distinguished Professor of Chemistry at Michigan State University, as well as Associate Dean for Strategic Initiatives in the College of Natural Sciences there. And I also wear a hat as Director of the Center for Quantum Computing Science and Engineering. Thank you.
Next, maybe we can move to Renee, if you can give us an introduction about your background.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Renee Robinson. I'm currently an associate professor of chemistry at Vanderbilt University, as well as an associate professor of neurology. I also wear a hat of NOBICHE's president-elect. So this is the National Organization for the Professional Advancement of Black Chemists and Chemical Engineers, and I will be transitioning to incoming president in a couple of weeks. I'm an analytical chemist, so I have a research lab, and in my lab, we're working to understand disparities in Alzheimer's disease using proteomics and lipidomics technology. So glad to be here and happy to share more about my background as we continue our discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Renee and Angela. Next, maybe Susana, if you don't mind, share your background with us.
Sure. So I'm Susana, and I currently work as a synthetic chemist for Corteva Agriscience. I have been there now for about 3 years. Prior to that, I did a postdoc at Northwestern, and I did my PhD work at the University of South Florida in organic chemistry. As far as outside activities from the company, I currently serve as the chair for the new Midwest chapter of EWOC. Thank you.
Cool. I think we have another panelist, Joslynn. Not sure if she is here or no.
I'm not seeing her.
Okay. Okay, cool. I guess we can then continue with.
Sure. All right, so welcome panelists. Thank you for joining us today. So Yuping and I proposed this topic, you don't need permission to be the change, for our WCC roundtable, because we find that all too often women can be very reserved and hesitant perhaps to speak up in the workplace. So we proposed some questions for you to think about coming in, but we'd like to hear about times that you led through unpopular decisions, or how you learned to be the change that your organization needed, even if you didn't necessarily have permission to do so. So with that, we'll dig into these questions. Any of the panelists, feel free to join in at any time. Our first question to you all is, describe a time in your career where you made an unpopular decision. What was the outcome? And did that decision lead to change for your organization and or your career? Sure, go ahead.
So I'm happy to start. So first of all, what I can say is that we all make unpopular decisions. And so that is going to happen during your career. And I think one of the challenges is, I think often, and there's some books that talk about it, and we'll get into that a little bit later on, is that sometimes we're either, as women, we want to hurry up and try to fix things, or we spend far too much time dwelling on the mistake that was made. And so there's kind of a happy medium in that. And so I think it's really important to realize, first of all, if it is an initiative that does require change, most people don't like change. And there's a lot of literature that shows about 70% of change initiatives do fail, and most of it is because people, trying to get people on board. And so that's quite natural. there was an initiative. I was at an organization, and there was an initiative that I thought would really make an impact on the national level, and I proposed it, and it just fell on deaf ears. They were not happy at all. They were not happy at all. People were not listening. And it was really difficult to try to deal with that. And I was trying to think about, how should I backtrack? What should I do? And I thought the best thing to do is to just take a breath, stop, and just kind of move on with the day and see what happens over the next few weeks. Within 3 weeks, somebody had come to me and said, you know what, I think that's a great idea and I want to champion it. And so I was really happy to see that somebody stepped up. I didn't do my immediate reaction, which was to just try to either bury it or try to fix it or whatever the case might be. And it actually happened to be something that did actually become a national initiative then. And so, sometimes it just requires patience. And so, and that's a lesson that I did not learn early in my career at all. It's a lesson that took many, many years to learn. So thanks.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in next. I was thinking about something that more has to do with my career. So in deciding my research direction and where I wanted to focus our problems when I first started my lab, I kept getting a lot of feedback from colleagues, reviewers, just different people that were really wanting me to just pick a pathway, pick a protein and focus in on that and kind of build my career from that. But I kept feeling one, I didn't want to do it. Two, I couldn't choose which direction to go. And three, I really felt like it would be a missed opportunity on the beauty of the techniques that we were using in my lab. And so I really wrestled with it and kind of, just had to work through tuning out the voices and really trying to hear for myself what I wanted to do with my career, since at the end of the day, my team had to carry out the research. I had to be committed to writing the grants and the papers. And I just decided I was going to move forward with what I felt compelled to do, which was to really let our techniques speak for themselves. And I think the result of that ended up being, a track record in a particular research area, papers that came, grants that eventually came, and really me just learning to connect with other people that were like-minded and could appreciate the things that I could appreciate about my research direction. So it helped me to kind of learn I needed to expand the set of people that I was talking to so I could find people that were thinking in ways that I were thinking, which may be a little bit outside of the box.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing your experiences.
Yeah, these are really good lessons. Thank you for sharing. Our next question will be, when we are talking about you don't need permission to be the change, you really need to have some self-confidence to say, okay, I can do this. So the question for the panels will be how to build and increase self-confidence.
And I can start with that one. I think that self-confidence is something that you're not necessarily born with. It's something that you develop as you go through different types of interactions with people. One of the biggest things that I can say is that you need to surround yourself with people that are going to be your greatest critics, and critics not necessarily in, telling you the negative, but telling you both the things that you can improve and the things that, you can definitely do. And in my personal experience, I have had many critics at certain points in my career development tell me that I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And, one specifically that sticks out in my mind is when I was an undergraduate and I had decided that I wanted to do research in organic chemistry. And I wanted to join the minority program that basically paid for your tuition, gave you a small stipend, and then would send you for some research. And when I applied to the program director told me that because I had too many outside employment because the school was expensive and I needed to have other jobs to help pay for tuition, that I was not PhD material. And I was not accepted into the program. I was turned away. And I remember that at that point, I had a decision to make whether I was going to let what that person said to me stop me from where I wanted to be, or if I was going to try to make my own opportunities. And I spoke to my advisor and I decided that I was going to find my own summer research opportunity, which I did. And I feel that if I wouldn't have had the confidence in myself to say, if someone is telling me that I can't do something, they don't really know me, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at right now, which is working in agricultural chemistry.
So I'm happy to go next. So first of all, I think there's a book that I'm going to recommend. It's called Confidence Code, and I highly recommend it. And it is a book that where the two journalists who wrote it have interviewed women from across the globe, all types of national and world leaders. And this book talks about how 95% of women don't have a lot of confidence per se. And that manifests itself in many ways: over preparation for meetings, overthinking what has happened during a meeting. And it really, unfortunately, is quite a time waster. And, the book talks about not only gives these great examples, which are nice reminders, but also provides some strategies for how to try to avoid kind of getting into this kind of schema. And I think also in parallel, it's helpful to read, there's lots of different books out there, but another one is kind of Women Don't Ask, because it talks about the impact of what happens when we don't ask, when we don't have the confidence to ask the questions in negotiations and things like that. And so it, for me, it was kind of hitting home when I saw the salaries in terms of if you're not asking right from the start is really important. And then there was a study that was done quite a few years ago by Hewlett Packard, and I thought it was a very interesting study. What they had done was they had looked at, they had basically advertised a leadership position, and they really tracked who applied for it. And what they noted was that women only applied if they met 100% of the qualifications, and men applied if they met 60%. And so I think that's another message in terms of confidence and and I think that having that confidence is so important. And I really like what the last speaker said for the last session. What she said is, she mentioned a book about how to toot your horn without blowing it. And I think that is really important in terms of, of being confident enough to do that. It's really important. And I think often it's important to realize that we are often our worst critic, and I think so many of us are very guilty of that. And we need to just really try to learn how to not do that. We all make mistakes, we're all human, and get on with it and move on and really try to be as confident as you can, realize we're all human, and you'll have a lot more success in your career. And two more points I was going to mention before finishing. I have a colleague who's 101 years old and a really amazing gentleman. And when he was 96, he and I both gave keynote talks at a conference. I gave mine, then we had a break, and then he was going to give his. And what he said to me during the break was, "Gosh, I'm really nervous, Angela." And I thought, he's 96 years old, one of the leaders in my field, and he is nervous. And to me, that just means that confidence is something that we all struggle with, no matter how many times we've given a talk, how many situations we've been. I think that's really important to remember that it impacts all of us, and we just need to figure out how to challenge that and acknowledge that. And part of it is really realizing that everyone else is in the same shoes in many ways. And the final thing is, I worked for someone who it was interesting. I always thought he was an incredible speaker. He led an organization of a couple thousand people. And I was meeting with him, and we were both at a conference together. And then, he was getting ready for his talk that was going to be the next day. And I met his wife. And his wife opens up this bag and shows me. And I said, "Oh, what's that?" It was 3 huge chocolate bars. And I'm like, "What?" And she said, "Yes, he gets so nervous. He's got to have something to kind of curtail his nervousness and kind of build up his confidence." And apparently chocolate was it. And so I think what's really important is to also identify when we are, when we do hit down points, what is it that really drives our confidence? What is going to make us feel better? What's going to make us feel, ready to go and driven? Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I echo what the first two panelists have shared. And I would just add to it a few things. I think the first is knowing yourself. And so I think, we accept and we take on and we hear a lot of chatter that comes from the outside world, the people close to us, the people around us. And we let that chatter just come in and penetrate our minds, our emotions, how we view ourselves and all the different things. So I think sometimes you have to get outside of that chatter and really look internally and know yourself. If you reflect on yourself since, your earliest years, and you start to look for qualities about yourself and things you've been able to accomplish and things you've done, then you have a firm understanding of who you are and what you can do. And I think for me, I've grown into that in different ways and in different seasons of life. And I think finally I'm in a season where it's like, okay, I know I can show up, I can do this. I just need to know what I'm talking about. So let me go figure out what I'm talking about if I'm giving a presentation or whatever it may be. But then the other thing is, I kind of know the things I'm good at, and I know I'm able to do certain things. And so I reflect on that before I get myself in a, sort of a down situation of listening to that outside chatter, not believing what I already know to be true about myself. I think the second thing that has helped me has been putting visible reminders of things that I've accomplished, so that when I have those moments where I'm doubting myself, I can be reminded, like, wait a minute, you did that. And you were the person that did that. And with help, you were able to do that. And you're still here. So obviously you can get through these difficult things and get them done. And so that kind of it helps me, is to have those tangible reminders. And so I have things around my office and my car at home that just kind of help remind me when I need to. And then I think the last thing is just recognizing, that we all have different ways that we can channel in positivity. For me, it's faith, and just recognizing that a lot of my confidence doesn't only just come from me, it comes from another source. And so when I don't feel as confident in myself, I can tune into this other source that exists for me in the universe and allow that to help build my self-confidence in those moments. So knowing yourself, putting reminders to remind you of what you can do and what you're capable of. And then if you need to, channeling some other sources in the universe.
Thank you. I really love that idea of leaving reminders around for yourself and just, getting that little boost every once in a while when you need it. That's a really great idea. Our next question here is, do you have any practical advice to change your mindset about asking for permission versus switching over to kind of that self-driven effort?
I think Dr. Wilson kind of mentioned it earlier, which is kind of just, you just do it. We overthink things a lot, I think, as women. We feel like we have to get permission to do things. But if you can get over that hurdle and just do it, the more you do it and you practice it, the easier it becomes to kind of have this self-driven effort. I think for me, I've had periods where I've been frustrated by the concept of having to ask permission to do certain things that I think we should just all agree that they should be done, right? And I get frustrated by the process of that and how slow it takes to create change because of this mindset of asking for permission in order to get the things done. And so what I've learned is that oftentimes, because of Dr. Wilson's point that change is, it's hard for people to accept changing it on board, is that sometimes you have to be that and you have to not ask permission and just kind of push forward and get the effort going. But then once you demonstrate that it's working, it's effective, it has impact, it has value, then the rest of people come on board. And so that could be if you felt like you had to ask permission of a manager or someone else to affect some particular change, oftentimes if you just go do it, I mean, and don't spend money that you can't spend, but just go do it and kind of show proof of concept that it's helpful and it works, then that allows people to get on board. And then you realize, okay, it's not so much about even having to ask permission. I just needed to demonstrate the thing. And so that kind of helps me. And I feel like if I do something that's really outside of the box or that I really probably shouldn't have done, I'm willing to own up to that after the fact. And I'll deal with the consequences later.
So just to follow up, I mean, I think it's often kind of a fine balance, because there are definitely times and things like Renee, and please call me Angela. Anyways, that are done that, you know, if it's going to impact budgets, if it's going to impact other people substantially, it's typically something that you need to at least have some sort of discussion with your supervisor about. But there's a lot of things, and some things you realize that your supervisor trusts you and doesn't necessarily want to be, you know, you asking questions all the time. And so you just do them. And I think that's really important, because sometimes it's easy to, and certainly out of respect. And often that's why we are asking for permission. We really respect the people we work with, and we're kind of about, you know, chain of command, and, you know, what you do is you ask questions. But sometimes that's viewed as us not being as confident, as independent as we, you know, truly are. And so I think it's really important to when you have the opportunity and you're not really stepping on toes or too many toes, to go ahead and you know, to move forward. If you're in academics, it's a little harder as assistant professor, so kind of save that to after promotion and tenure. But certainly it is important to do that, because, you know, some things in at least the academic world take forever. And so when you don't act on things, it does really delay the progress, like we had already mentioned. And so I think it's really important to make decisions, to go with them and move forward. And you'll learn along the way. You'll make mistakes, but own up to them. And along the way, you'll figure out, you'll have a better idea of what you need to ask permission for and other things you can just kind of go forward on. So.
And just to follow up on those points, I think that, you know, something that one can do in order to take that first step into not feeling like you have to ask permission is just take ownership in your own career and your own path. Instead of maybe taking the big jump and doing something that's going to promote a massive change in your surroundings, you can start with baby steps, and you can start with taking charge of your career and your career path and where you want to go and where you want to be. And that is the easiest way that you can start to learn how to take charge of things and feel like you don't necessarily have to ask for permission in order to advance your career, and then later on ask for permission for other things that can follow up with that.
Thank you. Those are very helpful. I think there's already a couple of tips that I write down that I can probably practice myself as well. A follow-up question that is related is, I was wondering if the panels can share with us the importance of find your voice, and if you have any practical suggestions on how to do that. Because when we are talking about confidence, about, you know, self-driven, sometimes the first step will be, you know, find your voice and speak up what you wanted to express. So to the panels, share with us the importance of find your voice and some suggestions on how to do that.
Okay, well, I guess I'll jump in. I think, you know, part of finding your own voice is, I mean, you know, be you, work hard. And I think it's important not to, when you have an idea, you have an opinion about something, be constructive in terms of presenting it, but don't just sit there in silence. If it's something that you firmly believe is going to, or I shouldn't say firmly, if you believe it at least 60% is going to be impactful or important, to go ahead and say it. And, you know, sometimes it's, you know, for some people, it comes very naturally to, you know, to use your voice, you know, for some people, but not for all. And so if you begin to start using your voice in a unit meeting or something along those lines, it becomes easier and easier with time. But I think also what's really important in parallel with that is to not, if you want to see something get done, don't necessarily just own the idea so much to the point that, because I've been in many meetings where somebody else joins in and they say the same thing you just said, and everyone buys into it because they said it. And so, that happens. And so, over time, people will see that the voice is actually yours. Early on, sometimes it's important just to get the idea out there. Somebody else may jump on it. That's fine. But the more your voice is heard, the more people, very constructively with plans, all of that, the more confident you'll feel and the more you'll be listened to.
Yeah, I think this is, one of those things that also happens over time and with practice and with experience, is that you get better at finding your voice and using your voice. And I think the thing that's helped me in periods when I didn't use my voice was to reflect on who is suffering because I did not use my voice. And I think as women, we're oftentimes very much willing to go to bat for other people, sometimes way more than we would for ourselves. And so that helped me to practice like using my voice, which is at some point it's like, okay, no, I have to speak up because these students need someone to speak up for them, because what these other people are saying just totally is like not right. It's not going to help them, that kind of thing. Or no, I need to speak up because other women need to know you can show up at a seminar visit and ask for a break because you need a nurse or you need to pump milk, right? Whatever it is. And so when you start thinking about other people in that way, then if you're the only one who is thinking in that and can help, then it encourages you, I think, to like get over yourself in that moment to use your voice. And then the more you use it for other people, then you recognize, well, actually, I need this. And you want to use it for yourself too. So for me, it's helped to think about others and to start to use my voice in that way.
Yeah, and I think definitely thinking about others is a good way to start, because it forces you to think that it goes beyond yourself. So you can use your voice in order to support someone else, and eventually you will start supporting your own self. I think that, necessarily your voice doesn't even have to be something that you're literally using. Your voice can be done through actions and, things that you do in your everyday life and your everyday career. Whether it's building up your scientific credibility, or if you're in academia, in your publishing, you're doing research, your voice is out there. It's being heard because your works are being seen. So I think that even if one isn't confident enough to speak up at a meeting right away or use their voice in the literal fashion, you can always use your voice in other ways and just make your presence known and build on your credibility.
If I can follow up on this, especially because I think it's really important for women, people from underrepresented populations to, sometimes we have to self-advocate. And it's hard to do that if you don't feel comfortable necessarily using your voice. But one of the things that I found, I used to be very shy. And so what I found was very useful route is to identify somebody in your unit who is somebody who, can, kind of serves as a mentor to you, but also happens to be one of the biggest gossips in the unit. Because what you can do is when you've got good news, you can share it with them, and you can guarantee you don't have to do any self-advocacy. You just mention it to them and they'll take it from there.
All right, great. Thank you. I like that idea. That's a really good idea. Let other people advocate for you, right? Get that word spread out. All right. So that kind of brings us to the end of the prepared questions that we had. There is that Q&A feature. If participants or attendees would like to pop in any questions there. As you guys were kind of talking, a question that came to my mind, I'm wondering what you all are most excited about for the future of women in chemistry, and kind of as we're more seen in this space, what that might lead to as future chemists.
So I can tell you when I first started my started as I'm a theoretical chemist, and so I would go to these meetings, and there would be only a few women and a couple hundred men, and I'd go into the bathroom, and this is going to sound really silly, but I'd go into the bathroom, and there would be no line. And nowadays there's a line. And so I'm really happy to see that. Never thought, you'd hear somebody say they're happy to see a line, but I truly am very happy to see a line, and particularly when the line is extending outside the door. So I can certainly see changes in that regards. But I would like to continue to see more and more women, more and more people from underrepresented populations in the field. And what I also look forward to is the point where we don't need these discussions anymore, because it's a dream that we all be considered equal. We have respect for one another. We finally achieved the Equal Pay Act, which we have not yet achieved, even though it's been 50, 60 years, and things along those lines. I really look forward to that. And there's so much literature that shows that, diverse teams can accomplish so much more. And I just can't imagine what we can achieve scientifically. We're achieving a lot, but when we have even more diverse teams, what we're going to be able to accomplish scientifically.
Yeah, I echo with that. I think I'm excited for one, just all the things that will, get done and get done better with more women being in our field and all the different, sub areas of chemistry. And then two is just the innovation that's going to come with that. I think there's just so many creative ideas that we have as women, so many different ways that we think about things that we can, in our daily lives, but that we can bring to our work and into our science. And so I'm excited to see how we will impact our field with just the newness of ideas, the way we get things done, the way we convene, the way we present, the way we, build in the breaks that we need in our business, like all those different things. I'm just excited for innovation that women will bring to the table.
I think one of the things that I'm mostly excited about is just the support aspect, being able to see other women in the same field that I'm in with the same ideas, being able to share those ideas amongst ourselves. And I think one of the things that I'm most excited about is just the fact that when I was an undergraduate, I didn't really have anyone that I could look to and say, oh, there's someone that's just like me, and they're, a professor at an institution, or, they're working at a big company in chemistry. I think that I'm most excited that that is changing, and we're seeing more and more women and underrepresented, groups in these positions. Therefore, people that are starting out can see someone like themselves in these positions and say, hey, if that person made it, I can also get there. So I think that's one of the things that makes me the most excited.
Thank you. Now, I think we can open the floor to our audience. If you wanted to ask questions, you can type in. We actually already have 3 questions. Let's see if I can read the first question. Give me a second. I think I'm still trying to. Oh, there's one question that popped to someone. Oh, okay. So a comment from one of the panelists really hits on a huge part of being successful in those scientific academic careers, the support. So can the panelists speak a little more about what are the specific asks at home that we should be considering? I think women try to be superwoman, but you can't do it all the time. Any good suggestions from our panels? I think it's a very related questions to most of us.
So a number of years ago, I was finding that what I was trying to do is cut corners in terms of sleep, which is not the thing to do, because there's only so many hours in the day. I had 2 young kids, and still trying to keep on top of the house and a research group, and I was in a leadership position. And it was interesting because finally I broke down and I talked to the provost and vice provost, and they were both women. And I'm like, all right, so what's your secret? And what they both did was they both hired a housekeeper. And, they said, what they did was they identified what is it in their life that they could really kind of give up and not really mind too much. And they didn't have somebody come in all the time. They still did some things, but they said, there's a point where it's really helpful to get help once or twice a month. One of them did 4 times a week, and I tell you, I did that, once a month. And even that once a month was just kind of it was just a wonderful feeling. Those days I came home and the house was clean. And I mean, I think there's just small things like that we can really, we need to think about what can we really get off our plate. For those of us with research groups, there's times it's like, how many times do I need to proofread this article? And so I've, established a system within my group where they have to proofread each other's articles. And then it comes to me. And so I still have to proofread it, but it's like, it's not as gory as it had been. So just simple things like that, I think are really helpful.
I think something that really helps as well is just the ability to be able to ask for help. I think that the mentality that we get, especially throughout graduate school, that you have to do everything yourself. You have to do the research yourself, the chemistry yourself, the analytical data yourself. It's something that becomes ingrained and then transfers to other aspects of your life. And I think that the moment that we let ourselves know that it's okay to ask for help, that it's not making us look weaker, we're going to be stronger. I think that aspect of asking for help and the fact that women already feel like we're seen as, the weaker gender, prevents us sometimes for asking for help because we don't want to seem like we're someone that's needy or that needs, someone to hold our hand and guide us. But I think that that's the most powerful instrument that we can use to make ourselves stronger, just being able to ask for help, whether you ask a colleague, to further explain a theory, or, how, Angela was saying that she has her students help each other amongst themselves to proofread these articles before it reaches her. That's a great way to start showing people that it's okay to ask for help. And I think that the moment we let go of the association that asking for help means that we're weak, we'll be much stronger.
Yeah, Trita on the help point. There's help in so many different ways, and certainly at seasons of my career, I've had to get over it, and just ask for help and accept the help however it came, and not try to micromanage the help. So definitely to that one. I think a couple other things. One is like self-care. And so you have to sleep. I know my students don't think I sleep, but I do sleep because I'm exhausted, so I have to sleep. But the other thing I do is I carve out times that are just for me. And I have, a morning routine of taking a walk or a run or getting on my bike or doing something. And it's funny because at times it's hard to actually just take care of myself in that moment because I'm like, oh, let me check email, let me do whatever. And I'm like, no, it's 20 minutes. 20 minutes you can have for yourself. And so having that time of, just having a moment to breathe and reflect, I think helps to fuel the different things that you're doing. The second thing, which is always a work in progress, is just saying no, right, to things that don't fuel you, don't motivate you, that you're not interested in at that particular time, or that you just can't, you can't take on because you have other things on your plate. And I know it's difficult for us to do that, but certainly it's something we have to be okay with doing, which is like, no, I can't, I'm committed, overcommitted, and that's it, period. And then the last thing is to, to be okay with the seasons where you have different things that you have on your plate and you want to juggle. And you're just kind of figuring it out and navigating as you go, and recognizing that every season won't look the same. And there are periods where you have the leadership and we have small kids and we have the different things. And then there are other seasons where we're going to just quiet it all down and we're not going to have all those things, and being okay with that too. So flexibility.
And I'm going to follow up with that too, because I think the exercise of self-care is so incredibly important. And, find something that really allows you to take your mind off of things. For me, yeah, I like to go for a walk or ride a bike, but my mind is still going. And so I forced myself to do things like Zumba and tennis and basketball, where I have to be paying attention and completely get out of science for a while. And I think that, having that time to force yourself kind of out of the, out of that, I think is really important. And I also completely agree with saying no. And I know it's sometimes very hard to say no when you're, especially earlier in your career. But, I think what you can do is what I call the strategic no. And so, I would be asked to be on a committee or do this or do that, but there was something that I wouldn't have minded being on. And so I would say, well, no, I don't really want to be on the parking committee. You got to love the people who are willing to do that, but that was not me. And I said, but, if a position comes up on the research committee, I'm more than happy to be on it. And so then 2 years later, I got the call, and I learned a lot being on the research committee. And so, if there's opportunities where you can say no, but to use it to help you get something that, you might not have gotten other or considered otherwise for, it can be useful. So just something to think about.
All right, great. Thank you. That's some really, really great advice. And I like that idea of maybe denying one opportunity, but hey, here are some of my other interests, and keep me in mind for that. That's a nice strategy. I think we got just a little bit of time left here. An attendee asked, what's the best way to set the tone for yourself as you start at a new company? Any thoughts?
From my personal experience, I think that it's a fresh start. So you're no longer, especially if you're coming out of graduate school, you're no longer that graduate student. Now you're an expert in the area that you worked on, and you're coming into this company or this new work environment, and you're going to bring that to that environment. You were chosen to be there because they saw something in you that said, hey, this person has a lot to offer. And I think that if you take your initial start at a new company or any new work endeavor, if you tell yourself, this is a fresh start, I'm going to take the knowledge that I've acquired from the time that I started my academic career up until the time that I'm now beginning my career, whether it's in industry or following in the steps of other academics. I think that if you just tell yourself that it's a fresh start and that no one knows you, and the initial impression that you put forward is the impression that's going to make your future impression known, I think that's initially the best way to start.
And I'm going to turn the question into organization in general. And I think in terms of organization, a great way to start is, obviously you're going to want to work hard and really kind of prove yourself from the get-go, but you're only there for a short, you're only new for a short amount of time. It's kind of a honeymoon period. And that is such an important time to learn more about the organization, to get to know people in the organization. Talking with people is so valuable because you learn more about some of the resources you may not have heard about otherwise. You may learn about some other contacts for collaboration opportunities. And so, it may just be popping in, somebody's office and saying, hey, pre-COVID times, popping in and saying, hi, I'm new here, and introduce yourself and just say, hey, if you have some time, I'm in this office and I'd love to talk to you more about the organization. So, it's an amazing way to start. And I had a fresh start a couple of years ago at Michigan State. And, it was really great to have that because I learned, I've got so many wild collaborations. I never thought, as a quantum chemist, I never thought I'd be, collaborating with people in fisheries, but I am now. And it's really because of, kind of knocking on the door and meeting some of these people at different activities and different events. And really it is opens up so many incredible doors. So.
Yeah, I'll just close with, I think, the other thing too is just to recognize your yeses and your nos again, and recognizing because you're in a new place, you can come in and have some hard no's, and people will get to know you as like, that's a no for that individual. But then the yeses that are in alignment with who you are and who you want to be in that place, then they'll come to know that as well. So I think that's a good time to reset and kind of set the tone for yourself as well, or reset the tone for yourself in a new place.
Thank you. I do like the suggestion of, connect with people, get to know more people in the organization. I think the role you are having in the company typically fits in some part. So it's a great idea that you get to know more about the company, so you have a better idea of how you can fit into the organization. I know we are almost on top of hour. I'm not going to ask more questions, but I would like to have our panelists to wrap up and share the 30 seconds like take-home message from today's discussion, if you can.
I'll go for it. So I saw that there was another question. And so in my, closing, I'll just say, as women, I think it's important that we are supportive of each other, as Dr. Lopez mentioned earlier. And I think wherever you see venues that we can do that, it will allow us to help, one, be transparent with each other, two, build each other up, but three, it'll have a huge impact on our own self-worth, our own self-confidence, our own drive, and all the different things. So I think if we can, reach out to other women, at least try, even if you experience someone that has the queen bee syndrome, at least try and be transparent and let each other know, I'm here to support you however I can. It would be great if I had your support as well, where we can, especially if it comes to, a topic of being a woman, and that matters in the space that you're in.
So I'm happy to go. So just a couple of things. One of them is that, especially in academia, and I'm not going to speak for anyone in industry or government, but, in academia, people believe that there's just this like certain trajectory you need to go on, and that's the way it is. And I can share with you that I started off my career after postdoc trying to, kind of being place bound, at an adjunct at a small college. And, I really wanted to be in a research position, but that's kind of where I was at the time. We all make decisions based upon family and circumstances and all of that. And I think we should respect everyone for wherever they're at, whatever type of level, it doesn't matter. Everyone's part of an important team in terms of the sciences. And if you feel like you're kind of stuck, never feel stuck. If you continue to grow, opportunities will come to you. Or sometimes you may have to dig a little for opportunities too if they don't come to you, but certainly there will be doors. And the importance is certainly networking. ACS is a great place. There's other organizations too that are great places to do networking. And so just know that there is no career path that is exactly the same as another. If you talk to most women who've been in the field for some time, you can see these crazy career trajectories, and I certainly have one of those. It's okay because we all gain from the experiences. I left science for a while, worked on an MBA, and it's really benefited me through the years, And so we take these different pathways, and they're really dependent upon our own life circumstances. And that's really important. I think it's important to continue to grow. And I think it's important no matter what state we're at in life, no matter what, how senior or junior or whatever we are, I think it's really important that we always have, you can use the word mentor or coach or sage or whatever word you want to use. It's important to have a number of people, confidants that you can talk to about things throughout your career. And I think that is so incredibly important.
And I'll just say really quick, one of the biggest things is that you are your worst critic. So start believing in yourself and start telling yourself that, you are where you're at because that's where you're supposed to be. And that if you want to change it, you can just take control of your own life, your own career, and your own path. But everything starts with yourself. And if you don't have that confidence within yourself to look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you can do something, that's where you really need to start.
Oh, I like all those suggestions. Thank you. So thank you again to all our panelists. Your stories, advice, and tips has been very inspiring, and we appreciate you giving your time to participate on our panel. And thank you to the audience for attending and for your attention. We hope you enjoy the rest of the Predict Symposium. There is a short break until 4:10 p.m. Then the symposium will start again with Choose Your Own Adventure, Alternative Careers in Higher Education and Government Roundtable, and also the LGBTQ Allyship Workshop. Thank you and have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice to meet
Cool.
you.